Henderson or Brandon Miller in the mix, I think they're a playoff team next year. I do think that kind of bounce back is possible for this team. What do you think?
I completely agree with that, and I think for Charlotte specifically, it's not going to be hard to get at least back into the play-in mix. Dodging that and finishing sixth may be a little bit harder to happen, although it wouldn't shock me. They can certainly get into that top 10. I am a big believer in LaMelo Ball. I think his playmaking is phenomenal. I think he plays with a bravado that maybe rubs some people the wrong way outside of his fan base, but I just love the way he plays. I've always been a sucker for big playmakers, and I don't think people understand fully just how important his size is and the angles that he can see, the vision that he has. His shooting is so much better than I think anybody expected it to be coming into the league. Like, to me, if he's not already a star, and I think his all-star appearance would suggest that he is, he's certainly on that trajectory. And that's the most important box in team building to check. You got to have at least one star, and they've got that. And now, we've already seen how well he and Miles Bridges play together. So now you've got a star and maybe a semi-star on your roster with those two guys. And I think there's multiple guys with star upside that they could go for with that number 2 pick. You mentioned the two obvious ones. And I think he fits with either one of those guys. There's a lot of discussion right now. Do you draft Scoot Henderson when you already have LaMelo? And that's another benefit of LaMelo's size. I think you could easily play those two guys together because LaMelo's 6'7". You just have him guard the wings. I also can see the value in taking Brandon Miller there. I think having a wing with good size that he can spray out to for threes is huge. So the fact that they've got a star or a potential superstar on the roster is huge. And if LaMelo stays healthy and you get 2 or 3 more role players in there, I'm with you. I think they could easily get back into that mix.
But if you have the pick, I mean, it's been a fierce debate here, Scoot or Brandon Miller. Now, I'm like you. I've leaned Scoot. I do lean Scoot, but I think Brandon Miller is a fine pick, although they're very different players. You get the pick. Mitch Kupchak hands you the card and says, Andy, fill it out. What's the name?
I actually would go Brandon Miller. I don't really buy the reasons people are saying for staying away from Scoot. This is more of a pro Brandon Miller thing to me because I think wings who have his size and can shoot, I think are more valuable and typically more versatile than the Scoot archetype. And Scoot could be a phenomenal player, but I look back on, we've had several drafts in the last 15, 20 years where there's a guard who comes in with, he's got the perfect body, he's got great athleticism, but we're not so sure about his jumper. And the results have been, like, Derrick Rose won an MVP. Obviously, and then injuries derailed him. So it's kind of hard to say what might have happened with him. Ja Morant has had some phenomenal seasons, and then he also has had some stuff, obviously not injuries, but other stuff potentially getting in the way for him. I look back and I think how many of those guys have led their team to a title. And that's maybe not a fair characterization to put on an incoming rookie, but I feel like wings are just have an easier time seeing him contributing to high level winning. And I do love the fit with him and LaMelo too. Like I mentioned, LaMelo can get to the paint at will, and he's a phenomenal passer from there. And if you've got reliable 3-point shooters for him to kick out to, I think Charlotte becomes really, really difficult to defend. And I think there are ways that him and Scoot can work together. I think the fit is just a little bit cleaner with Miller. I like the size, and there's just slightly less of a question mark with me with Miller.
All right, last thing, Andy, I'll let you go. As we talk about who they're going to pick and who's in charge of that decision, it does raise a lot of questions, as you well know.